Namaste. Welcome to the talk number 5 in the series on the Yogic view of self. In the previous two talks, talk number 3 and talk number 4, the speaker has discussed matter and body and mind in relation to what we talk, that is self. So the self has two aspects, namely the body and the mind. These two constitute matter, and we have been extensively discussed these two aspects of self. But as we have already learned that the self is not permanent, its property is changing, it constantly changes. It changes in the sense of accumulation, accumulating more and more what we try to become this or that every day or every moment in our life. So the self within the quote is more complex to understand, but the speaker has simplified it by making you understand what the body is and what the mind is in relation to self. In the present talk, the speaker will dwell upon three aspects, namely consciousness, pranic force, and matter. What is this triangular relationship? What do we understand the connection between these three, consciousness, pranic force, and matter? We are not concerned about the soul, whether there exists a soul or no soul is not our primary concern, although there has been an endless debate in various religions and among scientists too. Neither the scientists nor the theologians nor the religious heads have arrived at any conclusion or any understanding. Both seem to be at loggerheads. We are not concerned about this, whether there exists soul or no soul. It's a metaphysical question, and we are not interested in that metaphysical question. Particularly, the speaker is not seriously concerned about this. But we will understand what soul is by understanding the three aspects, namely consciousness, pranic force, and matter. The speaker has already made it clear that consciousness is there. Consciousness is within the quote. It is the substratum of the entire creation. But consciousness is expressed in matter through pranic force. Pranic force is an activating principle of life in the entire creation. At the human level, the pranic force expresses through breath. The pranic force enters the human body through the breath. A pranic force comes in between consciousness and matter. As we have just now learned, it is an activating principle. It activates matter. It gives life to the matter. The matter gets activated. The matter is not constant, as we have already learned. It has two properties. One is the matter can express itself only in multiple forms. So its nature is plurality, multiplicity. We cannot see matter in a one particular standard form, in one particular fixed form. So there is no constancy of the matter. The matter is never the same for all times. Its property is changing. As we have learned that matter is expressed in multiple forms, when it is expressed in multiple forms, it means change. Uh, Taking multiple forms and shapes is nothing but changing property. So this is the second property of the matter. So matter is never constant. It is never the same. It is expressed in infinite forms, and therefore its property is plurality. We can only see matter only in this sense because we cannot visualize the matter in any particular fixed form. And its beauty is only in its expression in multiple forms. Otherwise, the creation has no meaning. Creation means multiple plurality. Creation is never constant. It doesn't remain in one particular form in one place. No, it keeps moving. This is another property of matter. Matter keeps moving as it changes. So, plurality, inconstancy are the two properties of the matter. We have consciousness and we have matter. In between comes the activating principle, that is pranic force. This is called cosmic energy at cosmic level. At human level, we call it prana or breath. But breath is not to be confused with the prana. But prana enters the human body and expresses through breath. So As such, we cannot see the pranic force. It is invisible, it is subtle, but it plays a predominant role in activating the matter. So, what comes in between consciousness and matter is the activating principle. And this activating principle is called pranic force, and at cosmic level, it is called cosmic energy. Without cosmic energy, matter cannot move, matter cannot be activated, matter cannot express itself in infinite forms. So, pranic force is must. Its presence is essential, that without it, matter has no meaning at all. Now, consciousness expresses through matter. In other words, matter has emanated from consciousness through the activating principle called pranic force. We need to understand here that we cannot touch the state of consciousness because what comes is the matter. Matter is, is the most obstructing force, is the greatest obstacle. So, as long as matter is there, consciousness cannot be experienced. We can never touch that state. And the matter has two aspects. One is the body and the mind. Matter has two aspects. One is the physical body, and the other one is mind. The physical body is the form, the solid form. Mind is not to be confused with consciousness. The mind is subtle. It is a subtle aspect of the matter, whereas the physical body is the gross aspect of the matter. So, matter has two aspects, gross and subtle. The gross is expressed through the body, and the subtle is nothing but mind. The mind should be present. If the physical body is to be activated, that is, the activating principle, that is, pranic force, enters through the matter and gets activated again through the mind, and finally it culminates in the body. So, mind is a consciousness which is not to be confused with the consciousness that is the substratum of the entire creation. So, matter has two aspects, body and mind. The property of mind is to again invent and create. And this mind, as we have already learned, only in relation to the functioning of thought. If thought is not there, mind is not there. So, mind is nothing but thought or thoughts, cluster of thoughts. So, the body functions because of the presence of mind, because the thought makes it function with the activating principle called pranic force. Now, mind again has two aspects, the gross mind and subtle mind. The gross mind, what we call the self within the court, and we have already examined what this self is. This self is nothing but our samskaras, our vasanas. Our samskaras are our impressions deeply imprinted in our consciousness. Our vasanas are tendencies, the past tendencies that we inherit. Both the samskaras and the vasanas make what we call the self. Now, this self constantly helps us in discharging our functions in our day to day life in the world. In other words, we are constantly guided by our samskaras and our vasanas. As the speaker has already made it clear that there is no action in the world, there is only reaction. Human beings perform reactions, animals also perform reactions. There is nothing like a spontaneous, sudden, and natural action, as many religious heads preach. There is only a reaction, there is only a response to a situation, to an idea, to something else. This response is what we call reaction. And this reaction is constantly guided by our samskaras and vasanas. Because there is no independent reaction within the court. All our reactions are dependent, mutually dependent. We draw inspiration, we draw the source of material from our samskaras and vasanas that are stored in the bottom part of our consciousness, what we call a subconsciousness. As long as these vasanas and samskaras are active in us, we become very gross. So the speaker is referring to the gross aspect of the mind, that is the self within the quote. The self is nothing but the making of samskaras and vasanas through which we perform our actions, karmas. That is the gross aspect of mind. But there is the subtle aspect of mind. What is the subtle aspect? When these samskaras and the vasanas are eliminated, then it becomes subtle, the mind becomes subtle. In the sense, can we eliminate samskaras and vasanas? Is that possible in our living? That is the biggest question that we have. We can minimize the effect of samskaras and vasanas in our life, but we cannot totally uproot samskaras and vasanas because over time we have accumulated and they have taken deeper roots in our consciousness. Over 40 years of our life, over 50 years of our life, over 60 years of our life of karmas, and these karmas are again transformed into samskaras and vasanas. So they have taken firm and deep roots in our consciousness. As long as samskaras and vasanas are present, We can never touch the state of consciousness because consciousness is subtle. As we have already learned, what comes in our experiencing that state is the mind. And we have already learned what mind is. Unless the mind becomes subtle and subtler, it is difficult to touch that state of consciousness. But right now, the mind that is given to us is gross, terribly gross, because we have more samskaras and vasanas, and their effect on our body is heavy, and their effect on our responses to various situations is inevitable. We cannot free ourselves from all these samskaras and vasanas. But that does not and that should not prevent us from making our sincere efforts to reduce the effect of samskaras and vasanas on our life. How can we make mind subtle? We have learned making mind subtle means the influence of samskaras and vasanas should be reduced, should be minimized. Rather, we should make our efforts to slowly remove layer after layer of these deeply embedded samskaras and vasanas from our consciousness. Then mind becomes subtle and subtler. When it becomes subtle and subtler, we can touch that state of consciousness. So this is the triangular relationship between consciousness, pranic force, and matter. Namaskar. Thank you very much for watching and listening.